Here we are in February, the hungry gap, the time when there's nothing coming out of the ground. Now you may be coming to the end of all your stored produce, all your carrots and onions and all the rest of it. What I'm looking at today is ways that we can bridge that gap between these plots here producing some fresh produce and you running out of your produce. So it's ways that we can warm the soil, get stuff going nice and quick to kid the plants that it's actually summer when it's really the end of winter. The whole key about today is to try and get some early vegetables on the go. We need to desperately start getting some growing done, and you know, spring is going to be on us very, very soon, and the preparations that we do now will pay dividends greatly in the future. So what I want to talk about today is ways that we can really warm the soil up, cheat the seasons, draw March into February if you like, April into February be even better. And one of the best ways of doing that is a very, very ancient old technology called hotbedding. It's nothing to do with the habits of professional footballers. It's very much to do with using steamy, rotting manure to produce a very steady bottom heat to warm soil up, to give the soil the impression that it is actually April, when really, in fact, it's February. So what I've done about 2 or 3 days ago is prepare a nice, small hotbed. Just to illustrate the methods. Now you can build anything of any size really with hotbedding. What I've done is to do about the basic and the most smallest size that you can get away with. And what I'm doing now is just to really illustrate the way that we've built this hotbed, give you some ideas on how you could perhaps do this at home. Not everyone's got access to a lantern cloche, of course. You know, there's lots of different ways which I'll explain later on protecting the soil from the elements. But here, because we're in the middle of a historic walled kitchen garden, we're using some of the old methods of warming the soil, such as this Victorian lantern cloche here. Now, to explain how we make a hotbed, we're looking at digging down into the soil, under the soil to about a spade's depth, clearing that out, making sure that the drainage is quite good. We don't want the manure and the soil sat in some very damp, moist soil. Try to position it so it's receiving as much sunlight as possible during the day, ideally south facing. East facing would be good to kind of draw off some of the frost quite early off that. Because we're in a walled garden, we can get away with any position we like. So what I've got here is a southeast facing hotbed here, which will warm up throughout the whole of the day, receiving as much light as possible. After you've removed your trench, what we need to do really is to get this steamy, well-rotted manure that's producing all this lovely warmth, 3, 4, 5 degrees warmer than any of the soil you're going to get. That's going to provide then a nice steady bottom heat for the next layer of finely sifted garden soil here, to about a depth of about 6 to 8 inches above this trench and mound of rotting manure here, and basically to put this sifted soil in, pat it down and then leave it for 2 to 3 days. Now, testament to the fact that this thing is actually working, look all around us and it's full of snow. There's not a bit of ice or snow on this. So we can guarantee that we've probably jumped 2 to 3 weeks by just assembling this hotbed to the other day. The next step is really to look at getting this sown. Now, for all intents and purposes, the soil temperature in here and the seeds that will be in here in a couple of minutes will think it's April time. So the kind of thing I'm looking at sowing here is something that's going to give us a nice quick return. And a quick return is something that's going to be up and ready within the next 6 to 8 weeks. Now, I've chosen some rocket here, something fresh, something that's going to bridge that hungry gap. But it could be absolutely anything. It could be cress, it could be lettuce, it could be radish, it could be some early seedlings of some of the brassicas that you don't have room for on the windowsill or in the garden. You can get into a hotbed, get them off, and again get them out early so you'll get some quick returns. There could be tomato seedlings, they could be peas, early peas. The list is endless. Traditionally, of course, centuries ago, these were a very, very popular way of raising melons and cucumbers outdoors, and it was the only way before the advent of glasshouses. But really, the world's your oyster. Remember, you've cheated the seasons, you're one step ahead. So next thing is to get this sown. Okay, so there's a couple of ways we could do this. We could either just broadcast seed onto here, just maybe rub it into the soil, particularly if it's a fine seed like I'm going to use with the rocket. If it's something like radish, we maybe wanted to put it into some drills. Nice easy way of getting some drills into this would be just to press a cane into the soil to the required depth, maybe inch and a half, broadcast your drill of radish and just slightly just brush over like that. Another great crop for this kind of frame culture is the blunt rooted carrots. Absolutely brilliant, you know, in the fact that they're up and out really quickly. And they're not going to be long carrots, they're going to go straight into the muck and fang. What they'll do is just sit on the surface and bulk up there. Ideal for this kind of culture. But as I say, what I'm doing today is going to sow some nice, quick and easy rocket. That'll be up and ready to pick, I reckon, if the weather stays like this, within probably 4 to 6 weeks. So it's anything we can get out fresh. And again, it's not so much about quantities and yields, it's about something that you've grown that's fresh in the garden. And that's the most important thing. Whether it's 2 or 3 leaves in your salad bowl, it really doesn't matter that much. It's something that you've grown, it's free and it's cheap. And that's what it's all about this time of year. So I'm going to very, very sparsely sow this rocket seed into here. Important with rocket, of course, to keep it warm during its germination, because what happens, or it tends to happen, particularly with the wild rocket, that it'll run to seed very quickly. We don't want that. We want it to be nice, lush and slow growing. So the real trick is kidding it into being springtime when it's really the back end of winter. So that's the rocket in. I'm just going to just get some contact of soil with the seed in there. Just rub it in very, very gently. And you know what? That's pretty much it. Sit back and wait. Germination should be within the next week or so. You'll see them nice young shoots of spring emerging in February. And lo and behold, we've cheated the season. Okay, well, it's enough on the Victorian way of heating the soil. Let's look at some perhaps more practical ways for those who don't have access to big steamy dung heaps, for instance. There's loads of ways you can warm the soil, and really, you know, you're not looking at the soil being hot. We're not after kind of summer temperatures. We're really after raising that temperature 1 or 2 degrees, keeping the frost off it. And perhaps the most easily available way of doing that is with horticultural fleece like this. Just spade it in, tuck it in with the spade, keep it nicely sealed up, leave it there for as long as you can, 1, 2, 3 weeks, and lo and behold, what you'll find is that the soil under that, it's just 1 or 2 degrees. It's received all the sunlight from it, less of the kind of frost as well. It'll make that much difference when it comes to sowing some of those early saladings that are going to get you around that hungry gap of the year. And another way we can warm the soil is to do something really, really cheap alternative to the barn cloche and the lantern cloche, is to knock up some tent cloches. Very, very cheap and easy way with some offcuts of wood here, just to keep that heat in. And then to actually separate the glass, just some very simple length of 2x2, cut at 45 degrees, not right to the end of the wood, keeping some in just to keep a little bit of a space to hold the glass together. Incredibly easy, incredibly cheap way of just getting that soil warmed up. Now these left on over the soil for, you know, a couple of weeks, a couple of days will make a difference, a couple of weeks ideally, will warm that soil enough just to give you that scope to raise the temperature with a couple of degrees, to raise the scope of planting no end. Again, cheating the season, making the plants think it's spring when it's really still the back end of winter. Another nice, cheap, easy option is the bell cloche. Now the traditional Victorian bell cloche, you'd be setting your back something like 40, 50 quid for these lovely glass, very fragile bell cloches. What we have here is a plastic bell cloche, just as good. Worth pegging them down. They've got nice holes to keep them down because they tend to be quite light. Good vent hole on the top. Again, they need venting at regular intervals as well to prevent any damping off, of course. So little vent holes on the top. Again, pegged onto the soil on the area that you're going to sow. Again, range of crops, again, putting some saladings in there, some seedlings, some tomato seedlings, sweet peas. The range is endless. Get going, get the soil warm. There's no end to what you can sow at this time of year.